Today's topic is on the mind and consciousness. In regard to self-improvement, change, this is an important discussion. And it starts out with a story. So a few weeks ago, I was at a college football game, and this game in particular went into double overtime. It was a crazy game. It had a rain delay, ended up being over 5 hours. And so imagine me sitting there, the last 2 minutes of play, I was feeling anxious, I was feeling butterflies, and it reminded me of a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. In high school, I wrestled, and the way wrestling works is that your name shows up on the screen as on deck or in the hole. In the hole means you're in 2 matches. On deck means you're up next. And so whenever my name would show up, I would get the butterflies. My body would go cold, my breathing would be heavy, I'd start to yawn. Ultimately, physiologically, I was not in a good space to start wrestling. It was just a bundle of nerves in my head and body. And this feeling translated onto the mat. It always took me the first 15 to 30 seconds to feel it out so that I could be in the moment. Honestly, I had forgotten about this until these couple weeks ago at the game, when these same physiological symptoms came back. As I sat there on the bench, I remembered this battle I'd face during wrestling season, of how I try to escape my mind and how to enter into my body to perform at my best. Now, this is important for you and for me every day of our lives, because there are moments where we are theoretically called up to wrestle. The football play starts. From sunup to sundown, we have 1,440 minutes of opportunities, attitudes, and choices that we choose. And when we're trying to push ourselves, the natural occurrence of nerves, of anxiety, cold hands do not help. They certainly didn't help in my wrestling career. They wouldn't have helped if I got called down to play in that football game. And they don't help you or me in our daily activities. So this got me thinking and led me on a little bit of a scavenger hunt of research. And within 5 minutes, I found something super interesting. That is, the definition of the word mind comes from an Old English word, gemynd, G-E-M-Y-N-D, meaning memory or remembrance. That was awfully revealing to me, because the mind is patterned by what has been. Anything in life that we're called up to bat in, where the future is uncertain, this plays a role. If the mind is based on the past, it can only do so much for us in our future. When it comes to change and self-improvement, the whole idea is that we're trying to create a better future than our past. The mind then has very little to do with any improvement or progress that we're trying to make in the future. The mind's role in this realm is to maintain coherence from the past to the present, expecting the future. It's where experience becomes our narrative, beliefs become reality, and conditioning becomes identity. Its job entirely is to keep who I have been consistent with who I am. Evolutionarily, that's brilliant because it helps us prepare for the future. Our brain is a prediction machine. In order to optimize for efficiency, the brain predicts the future by applying its experiences of the past. In neuroscience, that concept is called predictive processing. A simple example would be scanning a room. Based on our previous experience, I can scan the room and see a lamp, a couch, a TV, stairs, a table, chairs, all of this processing in my mind very efficiently because I've had experiences with all of those things beforehand. If the brain were to approach every situation as new, not using any pre-processed data, it would take a lot longer for me to scan and understand a room. Likewise, with anything we approach, experience, or do in our lives. For efficiency's sake, it predicts the future based on what's happened in the past. This is why Lisa Barrett, the famous psychologist, said you are continually cultivating your past as a means of controlling your future. For survival and evolution, it's brilliant. But for transformation and change, it's very limiting. The good thing is humans do have the capacity to change. We have been, in fact, given something that no other animal experiences like we do. That is the gift of potential through human consciousness. Consciousness, etymologically, means the state of being aware of what passes in one's own mind. So we have our thoughts, we have our mind, and then we have conscious awareness of what's happening in our mind. Psychologically speaking, this is meta-awareness, which is the ability to observe your own thoughts rather than think them. Thinking about it this way, where the mind remembers, conscious witnesses. This ability is our mechanism for change. It's what allows us to step out of those predictive habits. As I researched further, I was drawn to the writing of Jordan Peterson in his book, We Who Wrestle with God. Jordan Peterson calls consciousness a gift from God that humans share in God's creative nature. He looks back to Genesis in the famous verse, "In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." Jordan draws the connection that in Hebrew, formless and void is the chaotic potential of existence. What God does, and what we can do as well, is that he hovers over that chaos, not avoiding it, but confronting it, shaping its potential into a form. Peterson suggests that consciousness performs the same divine act. It faces the unknown, the void of possibility. That is the future in our lives. Through consciousness, we as humans process the domain of possible becoming. That is the realm that inspires both hope in our apprehension of positive things ahead and anxiety in the face of life's dreadful uncertainty. This goes back to me during wrestling season or watching the football game. That uncertainty of the outcome of my match or the football game created anxiety in my mind. Dr. Peterson continues, "It is that breadth of possibility that consciousness confronts and processes when it apprehends the world and determines to act on it. Consciousness deals with what could yet realize itself in exactly the way the Spirit of God deals with the void and the formless deep. The next step in this process is a determination of will. Once we have gained awareness of something that passes in our mind, we have the opportunity to judge it. So letting go of the past isn't necessarily erasing our memory, but rather disidentifying from it. So I have the memory to get nervous in uncertain events. For wrestling, during a football game, my physiological body response isn't helpful. From some past experience and a combination of my beliefs, there are certain limitations held within my mind that tell me to recede back in fear over taking courage to act. Once I've gained awareness of this reality, the process to change requires willpower. This willpower is what connects us from our past to our future, making a change in between. Once we have determined exactly what we're going for, different from our past, that is when we have to take courage and act and use our agency. So our framework can then look like this. First, the mind remembers. It acknowledges what has been, and we get the full use and purpose of our mind, all the way back to that etymological view that the mind is retrospective in nature. It only has the past to go off of. And so, for all intents and purposes of change and transformation and improvement, the mind is not helpful. We have to look elsewhere. That is the blessing that we get of being human and having the ability of conscious awareness. Rather than just thinking our thoughts, we're able to be aware of the thoughts we're thinking and thus intervene. The will is that intervention that chooses a new direction, following lastly with our agency, which executes that choice. In this way, we have two competing forces at hand. Naturally, our retrospective force takes shape. It's automatic, it's efficient, it's already pre-programmed. We literally don't have to do anything. The only problem with it is that it doesn't help us change. The prospective force is a combination of consciousness, will, and agency. It's the capacity to stand outside of our memory and choose a different option. It is a blessing we have as humans. In this 4-step process, we go through the different orientations. Our mind is in the past, our consciousness is in the present, our will is based on our imagined future, which brings us back to our present. Based on what we know about the past, based on how that's influencing what we feel presently, and based on what we hope for in the future, what are we going to do right now? That's the question at hand.